Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew, and for today's topic, we will actually touch on the Windows Server 8 Active Directory. We notice that if you have users Windows 2008 R2, you will be quite familiar. Reason because there isn't much major changes. What we have done in 2008. When you have actually users Windows 2008 to do a DRO to actually implement some of the things, you notice that in Windows Server 8, it makes it more simple. It simplifies everything. Let's take a look at my topics. My agenda, you have been doing Dcpromo day in, day out. Let's see the enhancement, what we can do. Recycle-Bin has been there in Windows 2008 R2. But the question is that it's invisible in R2. But now it's a graphic user interface, GUI. I'm going to set a password security. So in the past, in Windows 2000, 2003, I have no choice but to break into multiple domains. The reason because multiple domains is a security boundary. But starting from 2008 or 2008 R2, you notice that I can give individual user or groups different set of security policy. But to do it in Windows 2008 R2 is so tedious. But now it's simplified lots. Dynamic access control, something that is quite powerful. Okay, it's based on file server. Imagine you have a lot of file server. Yes, you can set NTLS security. Who can use this? Who cannot? But wouldn't it be good that I can push Active Directory policy where these folders is from finance department. You must be a finance user or personnel before you can have access to it. So I can set condition based on security now. And we can do tagging. Licensing, when I want to activate my Windows 8 clients based on enterprise, we will use KMS. But using AD to push your policy to have all the individual clients activated, I believe it will be good in these cases. And last of all, I have appendix, or the screenshot, which I do a demo, will be there in the slides given to you. And this section will be recorded. Okay? Let's go inside. First of all, Dcpromo. You notice that in the past, I have to set up using Graphicus to install the Active Directory services. Once I finish that, I'll go into my command prompt to do a Dcpromo. But all these Dcpromo commands has been integrated into Server Manager. It means that now, if I try to go into my server, okay, I go into my command prompts, I do a Dcpromo, okay, I do a Dcpromo in this case. Okay, let's see what happens. This will be the messages that I will see. Hey, you no longer can use command prompts to actually run the Dcpromos. Use the new interface, which is the Active Directory Administrative Center. Right? So with this, I will be able to go into my start buttons. My Active Directory Administrative Center will be your new console. I do not need to use users and computers. I do not need to use domain trust. Everything has been integrated into this console. It has been there since Windows 2008 R2. Okay, so when I go inside, okay, I will be able to manage my user, my objects, my server. Okay. At the same time, okay, sorry, let me on the server manager. server manager on that. Okay, so I can manage my users' objects. If I have a DC that I need to promote, which is in other country, what do you have to do? Oh, you either remote in, or you travel there, or you ship the server across. But now using this server, since you will be able to control all your resources, I can add rows, I can do all these things. Yep. You notice that with the server with the correct permission, you will be able to have access on the remote server and do a remote Dcpromo. It saves all the trouble traveling across. Okay. At the same time, okay. Yep.
So when you do the Dcpromo remotely,
yep.
What if suppose in the middle of the time the ranking breaks or something happens? Then how it continues to stay? What is the wait time to check the signal?
What you mean the interface connection field?
Yes.
So most likely the DC will fail also in these cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you remote in,
yeah.
Although the connection failed, but still you're only on that location, correct? So still continue. Maybe your connection from your RDP failed, but still the session is going on. Yeah. So here, if the connection fails, the Dcpromo failed, correct?
If you were to use a remote connection in, okay, let me correct my things. I believe when you actually use a server connect in, the service is still running on the server side, alright?
Yep.
So I believe the services will still be running, but I have not tested it out. Frankly speaking, I have not tested it out. But we have been using this interface to connect using NMC. So when you use the NMC to control something, when the connection cut off, the service is running over. Therefore, I think it still be working.
No, but the commands and everything you're sending to your NMC, correct?
Correct.
So if it is in the middle of the time, then how it goes further?
In which shape?
So, and like when you're doing a Dcpromo, it will check the DC sites and everything, right? But the command will be sent from here.
Yes, you're right.
So what happens, suppose say in the middle of the time, the running breaks, it has done one stage, second stage, but at the third stage, like checking DNS, the nearest domain controller or whatever,
yep.
failed, then how it goes further? Because it's going to set a sequence.
It would depend on what commands it is sent through. So if you actually do AD preps, forest prep, all these things, whatever command sent through, it will continue. But if in the middle of the commands before it's sent through, that commands will need to have to redo this.
But then why do you say it's safer than remote desktop?
Remote desktop, what?
Yeah, why is this more?
It makes it not safer, it's easier. Everything takes. Let's try this case. If you want to do upgrading of the domains, you need to take care of forest prep, domain preps. But now this interface takes care of everything. I no longer need to log into different credentials to do an AD preps, to do a domain preps. With this, everything's taken care. So as administrators, it's simplifying the whole things. Actually. Yep. So I will be able to control whatever server. I only have one server. If I can see the second servers, I will be able to access it. Of course, with administrative permissions, I will be able to take care of it and install the necessary things over here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just one things to just show to you. Do you notice this little things that I highlighted? Okay. When you install a server, especially when you're in 2008 R2, you have a difficulties of selecting whether you want a graphical or a core command-based prompt. In 2008 R2, you can anytime add in the GUI, anytime remove it. So it means that once I have installed this server with a graphic user interface, if I want to enhance the security by changing it to a core, I will be able to come into here to just manage the services, to add and remove whatever graphics I want. Do you see that? So you do not need to actually worry that, oh, for the first 3 months I deployed. Later my boss said, hey, how come you install SQL field? Let's convert it to core. What you have to do in the previous, reinstall everything. You cannot just add or remove the GUI interface anytime you like. Okay? Next.
So, the GUI, what you say, correct?
Yeah.
It's just like an like MMC or something like you would integrate?
The PowerShell command prompt only in the core, if you are talking about that. If it's core. If graphical, you can control anything you want using graphics.
Okay, so the server GUI is something like PowerShell GUI?
Yeah, it's the same as when you use your 2.8 install as a core version. So it makes it interesting, easier for me to add, remove. So when I were to go inside and add the rows, you notice that Dcpromo no longer can be done in the command prompts. It's integrated in the interface over here. Yeah. So when I install the Active Directory services, you will most likely see configuration required over here. You will see configuration required. And that's where I click on these three icons. They will actually tell me that, hey, and that's where your Dcpromo is enhanced on that. So I can promote this server to a DC. Everything in GUI.
Is it possible to use PowerShell
PowerShell engine? Yes.
to promote?
No problems on that. Yep. Now, I'm adding these slides over here. Reason because one major issue is that when you install Windows Server 8, we have a lot of cost coming in. Hey, my Dcpromo seems to have errors. The reason because this is a pre-beta version. It's not even beta yet. Therefore, this is a known issue. When you do a Dcpromo, you get a code error of 77. That's because when you try to do a Dcpromo, the functional level in the forest and domain, it is like Windows Server 8. The prerequisite check, you'll get an error code. You have to fix it in Windows 2008 R2. Remain in Windows 2008 R2. Then only your Dcpromo is successful. Else, this will be errors that you're seeing. So Microsoft has not created or prepared the Windows Server 8 forest function level and domain function level. Okay? Therefore, if you want to try in this pre-beta version, you have no choice but to leave it as Windows 2008 R2. Yeah. So here. So this, when you drop down, you'll be able to select what type of server version you have. Remain in Windows 2008 R2. And the prerequisite check will be successful in this case. So I can actually use this Active Directories Administrative Center to actually do a remote DC. It's simplified and integrate with troubleshooting process. All the AD prep, forest prep has been integrated with it also. Yeah. So some things that we can talk about in Dcpromo. Questions?
Suppose mixed mode and all, or the forest functionality and the functionality mode, it supports mixed mode, it has to be addressed from the server to the server container. If you want to add the Windows 8 domain controller, how it is.
If you want to add in the remote, that's okay.
So if I want to add Windows, this new version of Windows 8 into the existing domain,
Yeah.
so what should be the forest functional mode and the domain functional mode?
No, by default it's leave it as 2008 R2 by default.
By default, it should be
Yes.
in R2.
Right. So you can increase it if you want to. Yeah. But now if I try to raise it, I will not be able to see it at all. So let me go inside. Let me go into the AD Administrative Center. I try to raise my force function level. Okay. The highest at this point of time is Windows 2008 R2.
And the lowest?
Lowest, you can select whether you want to have 2008. If you want to.
That's what I'm asking. Is it only 2008 or I can have a whole period also?
Like heterogeneous and all.
I have to look at the interface. I have a screenshot. I will still remember that the thing is 2008. I don't see any 2003, but let me check the GUI interface. I have a screenshot.
So in that case, if I want to have a domain controller of Windows 8, my forest functional mode and domain functional mode should be first raised it to at least 2008 data.
If you want to just leave it 2008, just leave it as 2008. If you want to leave it as 2008, yeah, the default. Okay. Once you have your DC promoted, when we talk about Active Directories, you might be actually remove objects accidentally. Yes, they have given you prevent deletions with a checkbox that's in the previous version. But if you were to accidentally delete away, you can use different type of method. One type of, you can use authoritative restore. By using NTDS, you tell, I can mark this object CS group so that the USN number will be greater. So once it's up, you will be able to replicate to the rest of the DC. But the only limitation of this authoritative restore, you have to offline your AD. It means that your AD is down. Second method has been there since Windows 1.3. You can do a tombstone reanimation. By using LDP, you will be able to select these objects. I want to restore it back. But the issue is that all your attribute will be gone. It means that user 1 is a member of group 1. When you restore it, user 1 is there. But the permissions, the group you belong to, whatever attributes is lost. You need to add it back. If you use the previous version 2008 R2, yes, they have a Recycle-Bin, but it will be so tedious. I don't know whether you have seen the slides before. Just try to recall. This will be the steps if I were to do in Windows 2008 R2. Okay, I have to raise my function levels to R2. Okay. So I raise everything, and to enable in 2008 R2, I need to use the PowerShell to activate the Recycle-Bin. Yeah. So you need to learn the commands of Recycle-Bins. One thing to take note, if I have the user and object being deleted before I run this command, all those user and objects cannot be recovered by the Recycle-Bin in 2008 R2. Okay, so once I activate it, I delete away. But do you notice that in the console, I do not see any Recycle-Bin. It's invisible. So it makes it tedious and challenging. Reason because when I have deleted this user, I want to recover it. I need to use all these commands. LDPs to actually go inside to select what are the things I want to recover. So it makes it so tedious, connect ins, so many commands, and I might make a mistake because some of the conditions that I set to recover and find this user, I might not be able to do that. Okay. So you can see that how many slides or screenshots that I have to capture, to have to do it before I can recover this guy, Andrew. Let's try the new one. Okay. Let's create a user. You can see that my Recycle-Bin has not been enabled. So I create a user before I enable the Recycle-Bin to prove that it can be restored. So I create two users. Okay.
user 1, login, and he's a member of which user I want. There's a finance manager which I have created, pre-created. So there's a finance manager on that. I'll just create this user. So user 1 has been created. So let's try to enable the recycle bin. All I need to do, just come over here and just enable the recycle bin. So they will be prompting you, do you want to enable it? Once you enable it, at this point in time, you cannot disable. Yeah, I do not know whether the release will you be able to go back, disable your recycle bin. But once you enable it, you notice that once I click on OK, yep, they ensure that all your folders, this is to synchronize it because it's replicating. You must make sure everything is refreshed and synchronized and enabled. Okay. Okay. So done it. Let's refresh it. This is gray off. Yeah. So they prompt you. You can't disable it. Everything's. So let's try and create another user. Remember that user 1 has been created before recycle bin has been created. Seconds. Let's try to create another user. Okay. Andrew. If I were to do this in 2008 R2, user 1 will not be able to see inside the recycle bin. Yeah, but now let's test. Okay. Done my recycle bin. Let's refresh. It's empty because I have not deleted anything. Let's try to remove these two guys. User 1, delete. Okay, yes. Andrew, delete. Yes. I will be able to see them inside, and that's where I can actually go inside. Look at the properties. You can't see much things. It's just all the SID things. But it's gone. So let's recover it. Right click, I restore Andrew. If Andrew has been created inside the user container, you go back to the container. But I can restore to other OU if I want to. So let's restore this guy to the finance OU. So finance over here, user 1, the properties that he belongs to. Remember, he's still the finance manager belongs to us.
Then if I already created another user 1,
Yeah.
what will happen when we restore?
If you were to create another user 1, let's try it. So let's say that I delete away this user 1, is it? Okay, let's say that I delete away this user 1. Okay, let's go and create another user 1. If you have conflicts because your login names is unique throughout the whole domains, UPN is conflict within the OU only, okay?
The dependencies, right? To enable the active recycle-bin, your forest function level should be Windows 7 guarded. Otherwise, you can't enable.
It should be Windows Server 8, but now because it's not created yet, that's why I believe that when it's released, you have to set to Windows Server 8 function level. Yeah. So I create user 1. Let's go inside here. Yeah, conflicts on that because it's already exists in the domain. Yeah, good question on that.
So, it restores all the properties like login spec path or whatever profile path, everything it restores.
All the attributes, but just one things to take notes. Okay, so disable by default. At this point in time, because Windows Server 8 function level is not there yet, I leave this bracket. That's why I have set to 2.8 R2. Once enabled, cannot be disabled. So your questions, can it be restored all the things? Yes, but within a certain period. So this, you are familiar with it. So in 2.8, you have this tombstone object lifetime 180 days. It's all default, you can set it. It means that when I have a user over here, once I delete this user, that object is still remain in ntds.dit database. It will keep for 180 days. After 180 days, the tombstones, they mark as tombstone. Once we finish, they will do a garbage collection, push off. So after 180 days, I will not be able to recover in Windows 28. But in Windows 28 R2 and Windows Server 8, once I enable Recycle-Bin, I have additional 138 in front of it. This timings is default. You can set it and change it if you like. It means that, what's the difference between here and here? If I were to do in 2008, I can cover this user one. But this user one, the properties attribute is gone. But when I delete some objects, it's inside this tombstone of deleted objects lifetime, the attribute will still be collect and remain. But if I leave as a default timing, which I delete and group, after 180 days, it will fall into recycled objects. And at this point of time, I can recover and group. But which group he belongs to, all the attributes is totally gone. Okay. Yeah. So I hope this will be useful for you. Yeah.
How about when you say that the object related and the AD recycle-Bin, the property or whatever the object is stored in entities or DIT, right?
NTDS DIT.
In the database.
Yes, it's inside.
The same with the activity database.
Yeah, so if I were to use the R2 method, I can still recover it. Yeah.
Suppose say now we will take a backup of the activity database. So after the retention period, like 20 days plus 20 days, if I have a database backup, I can still able to restore it, isn't it?
No, but you notice that even in 2000s onwards, you notice that the backup is last time 60 days. After 60 days, you can't even restore back. So there is a safety check timing on that. Yeah. So how many steps have I done? Right click, my domains, enable. That's all. If I do it in the previous version, I have to capture so many screenshots. But now it's just right click, enable. That's all. Everything is simplified. And the Recycle-Bin is no longer invisible. Has been there here. And this is my Recycle-Bin. So good. Yeah, that's one.
But Recycle-Bin by default is disabled, right?
By default is disabled, yes. You have to enable. Right click enable.
So why it is disabled in the first point? Like, if it is very advantageous.
That we have lost Microsoft. I don't know.
That is very good.
That's all right. So let me answer that. So again, this is a free beta release. So a lot of functions they populate as a way as say these are the features that we're going to develop. And then at beta stage they say, what are the stickers that we want to set for this? Yes. So very likely that at beta stage you will see that it will be enabled by default.
In make the points.
Yeah. So because this is the product release, right? So at the beginning we add all these features, but let's not enable that first, because it's all these features allow you to see through enable you explore. So when you have a beta stage, all these features will come close to be enabled already. So it's a very cool feature that a lot of people say, it should be enabled by default. So I have confidence that the beta release will be.
Because users like us, they will ask to enable it by default.
Yeah.
And we will miss something like that.
Yeah.
So what if a user object is deleted before we enable the recycle?
I have just not played the user one.
Because it's deleted user before the recycle is enabled.
Oh, that will not be able to
Environment.
Yeah.
And I want to add.
Yeah, it's not kept.
I need to wait
Yes.
No, Now the question asked is that if I have created a user, I delete this user before I enable the recycle-bin. It should not be there in the recycle-bin.
Sorry, is the configuration of the recycle-bin also in the GUI?
Sorry?
The configuration of the lifestyle of the recycle-bin?
No, you have to use the LDP to actually configure it. Okay, I'll pass you the information in my previous how to change the default settings. Okay. Okay. So you can see that I can just right click to enable the recycle-bin. They'll prompt me, do you want to, are you sure? It cannot be disabled at this point in time. And you have to refresh it. The next one, the fine-grained password policy. So in the previous 2003, I cannot set individual user a different security password. I can't. So we have no choice but to break into multiple domain. But would it be, even if it's an enterprise, would it be good that if I can leave and keep everything into one single domain to make it less complex? So therefore, they come up with these ideas. If only I can target individual user or security groups with different security policy, so I can prevent from expanding multiple domains, short domain, all these things. So it has been there since Windows 2008. Has been there already. But to do that same things again, so all these will be the slides that has presented within user groups. You will be able to get all these slides. So these are all the slides that I have presented before. I just want to recall of some of you have not seen this class before. I will create a PSO by going to AD.avi edit. To go inside, create a PSO, objects, okay. Create names. I don't understand what is this. Precedence. Oh, I think I have to record it. So I have to go and find information. Oh, so precedence is just if I have two PSO applied to the same group or the user, the one that has the lowest precedence will take place. Yeah. So all these things you can see that when I do it in the previous version, I need to go and find out what is this password reversal. I have done with for the policy setting, the password settings. But I can see all these things, the password length, all the numbers, I do not know whether to put in true or 1 or 0. It becomes very complex and make errors easily, wrongly. What happens if I set the password 0? You can see. And when I do all these presentations, okay, I have to go inside all these properties to go and set. I have to apply to who. You can see that who I am applying to, I need to use all these attributes to go and find. It's very troublesome. It's very troublesome. Okay. And I have a hard time searching for this list. What does it represent? Okay, let me see whether I can find it. Yeah. I have a hard time to match the graphical with the console when I use Windows 98 R2. When I say enforce password history, in the console when I present in 2008 R2, it displays as MSDS password history length. But now let's take a look at the new version. Okay, let's try this. The new one. I go into my console, I go into my systems. Okay. Under my system, same things, you will set PSO. But you have a password setting container. So I just need to right click, create a new password settings. Everything graphical. Yeah. So you can see that everything has been changed to graphicals. So let's try some security enforce. Okay, to make things easy, I just remove this complexity so that I do not need to have minimum password when I reset it. Okay, so let's try. Who I want to apply to, I can just easily done over here. I want to apply, I think just I create a user called Andrew. Okay. So remember, I do not have this password complexity anymore. Yeah. So let's try. Oh, sorry, I did not set this. Precedence, we still remember? if I have two PSO applied to the same user, the lowest precedence will take place. So this is number 1 to whatever figure you have. Yeah, so you can set, let me type in the number. So 1 to the number of range. Yeah. So 1. Done that, I have applied. So I just remain the minimum password, let's say it's 3. Minimum password is 3, and I do not miss complexity. So let's try this, okay? Done, let's try and find back my user, Andrew. Before that, let's go into finance first. Right click, user 1. I did not apply to user 1. I reset the password. 111. 111. Okay? Complexity. But now let's go back to Andrew. I put inside the user. Yeah, here, let's try. So right click, reset. 111. 111. Okay, take it easy. So I just need to create and apply the who. So it's actually definitely. So I don't know whether this will affect the salary because it makes things so easy. I don't know. Okay. Okay, next. Any question for that? Any question for this? So I just need to create a password settings. I put in so that you can be reminded the one that have a low precedence that apply to the same user. Okay. Just take note, you cannot apply to an OU. You can only apply this password security settings or fine password policy to user as well as security group only. But OU you can't. Yeah, the same rules as 2008 R2. Okay. So you cannot apply to OU, which I take notes over here. You can only apply to user objects and security group. The function level, I still remain SQL R2 since I do not have Windows Server 8. And it should be available to all Windows 8 server. Yeah. So this enhancements is just a minor changes, but it makes things easy for you in graphical format. Okay. Thanks. Next, this is something that is new. Dynamic access control. Okay. In Windows 2008 R2, I can go in and install the file services. Once I install the file services, I should have the file server resource manager coming up. Okay. This classification has been there in R2. It's really there. So I can do tagging. What's the purpose of tagging? So that I can tag that these resources, user or group is with a tag that this user is belonging to departments called finance. Okay. So when I enhance with third party, what's the benefit? Oh, it can be these folders, any documents that is inside these folders that has a word called confidential. I can implement with third party that the icon of the folder will become red color. I can do that as already in 2008 R2. So I do not want to touch much on file resources because I want to concentrate on AD. So by default, if I were to install the file services, I only have two properties: the file owner email as well as the folder usage. This is local, so I can always create new local properties to target resources. Okay. So when I have targeted, I can go to any folders. As long as you install your file services, you notice that your folders will have this tag appearing. So I can use a local properties which I create, push to this folder locally, okay, which I will tell this folder that hey, as long as you have a document that has a word called confidential, mark it as high, then I can do something to restrict it. Okay, so all these things can be do. It's like tagging when you do it. So this has been there in 2002. Customers will be asking, hey, can I use the tagging to enforce security? You can't do that in R2. But now let's try this in survey. I can set a condition. I can set a conditions based on user claims. You claims to be Andrew. Prove it. Oh, Andrew is with this telephone number, with this email, is with this departments, with these email addresses. This is your claim. I can authenticate through claims. Something like you have done in AD.avi. Yeah. Same thing for devices, same thing for resources. These folders, you claim to be a finance folder, but let me authenticate that ensure this should be a finance. So I set tagging inside. But when I set tagging, I want to be a global tagging, no longer local. Why? Because I have so many file servers. I want to push the AD to all the file server. Anything with these permissions or with these conditions, you'll be tagged with these resources. So I say that, oh, this user, you must be in the departments. So when I create a user, in the user properties, I need to put in department finance because we are not finance departments because you might be marketing. You are still not able to access the resources, even though your NTFS has been granted full control. So what we're trying to say is that you have NTFS, I grant you full control. This DAC is sit on top of it. I have granted everyone the permissions to go and have a break. But DAC will come inside here and enforce the second layers. Go up. When you go up, please leave your bag here. So I will make sure that everyone's no bag is allowed to go up. So I have the second layers to enforce it. Right? So it means that you have the second security guard coming in to enforce because I might have set NTFS wrongly. So I can set conditions to apply to it. These resources, you must have impact high. The user clearance, because I clear your maybe manager levels, you are high. I can set the end of all conditions, and it's managed. This device is managed, not any guest computers. And I can use AD to push it. I'll show you step by step how to create it because I don't think you can find any resources from the web how to create and deploy this DAC. Let's try. Okay, let's try in AD first. Okay. Okay, I leave it up. I leave it here also. My ideas will be. I want to do something like this. If I have a folder within a file server called data, okay, these folders I have pre-created. This folder, the administrators, oops, sorry. The folders, the admin has full control. Same things for user. I purposely set it to full control. It means that by default, user ones belongs to users groups. Therefore, I should have full control of these folders, but everything is inside. I'll set two user. I have created two user called finance user 1, F1. This user is a member of or is in the department called finance departments. And he belongs to a group called finance manager. User 2, finance user 2, I only put him to finance department only. He do not belong to any groups. But by default, he belongs to users group. So let's take a look at what I have set. So here, when I go into the user finance OU, which I pre-create, I have F1 and F2. Let's take a look at F1. This F1 has been set to department called finance. Is a member of finance manager. That's what I have said only. Okay. User 2, finance 2. This is just a finance department, but he don't really belong to any group except a domain user. So, okay, so you get the idea, right? And inside the folder, I have created a folder called data folder. I try to put everything into one single box so that when you actually try and deploy and experiment it will be easier rather than everything clients, so many things. Okay, so I put inside here. Okay, this user, I put in full control, administrator full controls. Yep. So by default, anyone can access it. Let's try and implement the policy. Okay, I can change it to different view, list view or tree view. I prefer to work in tree view, make it easier because now you have something called claim-based access. I like to work from the bottom to the top. Let's try this. My whole idea is that if you want to access these finance resources, okay, which is the data, I must tag it that the AD know that this folder is a finance folder. And anyone who accesses finance must be from the department called finance. So I set condition in this case. So let's try. So resources will be your printers, your folders, everything is like, so this resources. You have all these pre-built resources. Of course, you can create a new one if you want to. But I just use the default called departments because I want to tag that folder. That folders must be a finance folder to have additional condition of authentication. So I enable it. Fine. So once you go inside, there's nothing. When you create a new one, it's the same things. You just ensure that this security resource property is checked on it. The rest. And you can add in your own attributes. Departments, what departments I have? I have departments called distribution, engineering, all these things. I can add in training departments. Okay. So I can add in my own values inside, so that when you do tagging, okay, you can have more option to tag. So I select OK, done. So when you enable properties, I have to make sure that it is recognized by the AD. So it must be stored in the AD to be pushed. Therefore, I need to go back to one step below to make it global. I can create a new global list if I want to, but there is a default global. Right click. Okay, you can add directly, but let me go into properties to show you the whole things. I can have it, add in, make sure that the department which I have just enabled, make it recognized by the AD, so that I can push it to whatever I like, or whoever I like. And below is just the permission manage, who can have permission to manage all these things. Okay, so done. Next, claims. Claims will be for user and device. Your claims to be from finance. Prove it. So rather than your permission in NTFS, AD will still use the claims, which is a tagging in the user or devices, to make sure that yes, you have permission in the folders, but I still have additional authentication used still in finance departments. So I create a claims type called departments. So I can choose whatever I want. Departments here. Yep. So if you claim to be departments, when you do tagging that time, can I put in my own value so that I do not need to type in? I can just drop down and select. Yeah, I can just add in finance. Okay. Okay. Done. So I have a departments created. So I have prepared for folders tagging, and I also prepared for the user tagging. Next, I need to create a rule. The condition I need to select. So I will create a rules called finance access rule. Any name you select. By default, target to every folders, every resources. But I want to set the conditions. The folders, the resource, must be from a department that contains whatever thing I want. Finance. Only when the folders has a finance check, then this policy will target to that folder only in that file server, because the file server has many folders. So if this is targeted, what kind of permission must I set if this is targeted in the folder as tagging called finance? So I change the permissions. So I set the permissions. Okay, to make things easy, I remove everything, so I do not need to log off, log in. Okay, I make sure that the administrators don't even have permissions. Yeah, then you can see it. By default, users has full control, administrators have full control. So let's change it. I add it in. Authenticated user. Administrator is also one of the authenticated user, am I right? Yeah. So anyone that has a login account will have read permissions, provided that you are a member of maybe the finance group, finance manager groups, which I created. Finance manager groups. Yeah. So one more. Yeah, one more. Plus, this is I can make it more restrict. I can add in another one with an and or. Provided that the resource is also finance. Can't see. Okay, so I put an and, make it more strict. Later I change to all, and we see the differences. Once we have done that, okay, and second, user groups, finance manager will have modified permissions. So I set two different kind of permissions, like authenticated user, anyone with a login in my domain can access this folder, provided that your department is finance, provided that the department is also checked. Okay. Okay, modified. This one just leave it as modified. Okay. Okay. Let's see users. Okay, let's change it lah. The one the resources. Resources user is a member of, and user department also is a finance. I think it will be easier because everyone can select it, because by default the folder is checked with finance. Yeah. So I have changed the permissions. If you want to access as an authenticated user, you must be a member of the finance manager, as well as and condition, as well as you must be in the finance department. Okay, so let's try. Okay, okay. Propose. This is current permission. I have proposed permission. It means that what if I apply this permission? What if I can look at the event log and see it doesn't apply? It just tell me in the event viewer what happens. So there is a proposed permission in there for you to predict. Yeah. Plus, you have a previous permission. Anything you modify, it will jump into the previous. Okay. So later I delete away, it will come into the previous. So at least you can restore back if something goes wrong. Okay. So I just leave that as empty. Okay. And last of all, I need to create a GPO. So a GPO can be created over here. So I can just right click, new central access policy. So I finance access policy. Nothing needs to be done over here. Just need to select the rules only. What rules you have just now, which you have created. Edit. Okay. Okay. So I have done. Now the question is that I have so many file servers. Which file server did we push with this policy? I have finished the first portion. I have created the claims, which is user. The department is finance. I create the resource properties also. I create a central rule. I can create a policy. So now my target is how am I going to use this AD to push to the file server. Okay. So your file server has a computer account. So I just go into GPO, your file server, group policy management. Now, if you have a finance file server, the computer account should be in the finance OU. Normally put in and create. So I don't have anything, I only have one DC to simplify the demo only. So if you have finance computer account and you want to push to target this finance, you right click on the OU that you want to target to the server. But now, because my DC is also a file server, therefore I target to my DC. Is it okay? Else, I will do something like this. Finance, if I have a computer account, I can just right click, create a new GPO. Okay, else, now I do it inside the default domain controller. Right click, edit. So, I will create. So this is how I'm going to push it. In the file server, which contains the computer accounts, I want to make sure I have a hard time finding this policy. Because there's no resources. I search through the whole thing. Where can I push the GPO? Okay, it's finally hidden here. Okay. Okay, I never expect it's inside the file system. Okay, manage central access policy, and this is where I push the policy. So if I target different OU with different policy I select, it will be pushed across. Select OK, and one main things. You must make sure that the DC recognize it and be able to carry the claims that you have enforced. Be able to recognize it and authenticate the claims. So this is a prerequisite policy that you must set. Under the systems, on the KDC, let me set it here. Okay, under the KDC, there is a support CBAC, claim-based access control. I need to enable it, I need to make sure that all the DC is capable to carry the claims that I have created, authenticate the claims. So it's a prerequisite GPO that you must enable. So I enable it. By default, the policy is disabled or not configured, and enable it. I do not know what do you mean by enough DC? At this point in time, I don't have any ideas. What do you mean by have enough DC that can authenticate? How many DC is considered enough? You update me if you have the answer. Okay. But I will set it to all DC can support the claims. All DC can support the claims on that. Yeah, I don't know enough DC. Okay. Okay, fine. So once I've done that, I select OK, apply. Now one thing before I end over here. Remember inside the global resource list, I can actually create a new one. Because I want to create and separate it. One for finance, global resources that I can push. One for HR, I want to push. If you create multiple, how can you select it? There is another policy which I have not used it because I just used the default. You can use this GPO. Under this administrative template in the computers, there is a file classification infrastructure. if you open up this policy, you can actually determine what global resource list to push by typing the name, which I did not use it. Okay. And if you want to enable the audit things, there is also a global central list audit. So there's many things that is inside that can set. Okay. So I did not set, I just push the policy only. So let's try. I close it. And okay, one thing is when you run GP update, where do you run the GP updates? In the DC or in the file server? The file server resources, right? But the file server is over there. RDP, but easier here. This is my policy, right? This is my finance. I can do a remote GP updates. Whoa! Last time I used to use command prompt remote desktop. Okay, now remote GP updates. Okay, but now I'm doing locally. I run over. Okay, from here I do a GP updates. Force to have the policy force in. As well as I need to update these property services. So that all the properties is updated correctly. Else sometimes you see how come the folders doesn't really have the properties, the global properties I have created. Enable it. So this will be the command I have keyed in. So a GPO is to have GPO pushed to the target server. The updates FSRM plus classifications, properties, definitions, so that you will have all the definitions updated. So let's try. Now I have updated. Let's go inside. I go into my start. I go into my file server resource manager. Let me refresh this. I should have a departments push across. Yep. So I will see this inside my file server. So my file server will be, I can't do anything. I can only view. I can only see what the things inside I created. I remember just I create training. Okay, so let's try. Okay, and if I go to my folder, data, right click, properties, classifications, it's been pushed across. Okay. Now I can do an automatic updates. I can use application to update it or tag it. But now I'm doing manually. I finance check. Apply. So the access policy rules is applied to here, this folder. And under securities, users still have full control. Administrator also have full control. But let's go into advanced. I will have this new central policy tag appearing. I can decide which policy to be applied to this folder. So when I click on change, apply, I can view what's happening over here. So I have two groups that I created. Authenticated user can access, read, write, but you must be manager. You must be from the department called finance. But for finance manager, as long as you are finance manager groups, you have modified permissions. So apply. Okay. Now, rather to save time rather than log on, the easiest way to test will be effective access. Remember, now I am the administrator. I should have full control in NTFS. The administrator. Let's check it. Administrator. Let's test what permission I have now. So I have full control in NTFS, but the second security guard told me that no, you don't have. Okay. Because why? Because administrator is an authenticated user. Yes, he is. But what permission did I set for authenticated user? He must be from a member of a finance manager group. He's not. His department is not finance, so he's not. So you don't have any permission except this is pre-default, at least administrator will not be locked off. But for user 1, finance 1 user, this user is a member of the finance manager groups. He will have modified permissions. Finance 2, let's try. Finance 2, check. Okay, updates. Hey, anyone can tell me why? Yeah, because I use an AND condition. It must be both conditions. Finance manager groups and from finance. He is only, F2 is only a department in the finance, but he does not belong to the finance manager groups. So let me change the permissions. Let me change the permissions on that. The permissions over here, now I change it to all. So here I edit a tourniquet user, I change to all. Stress, runtime. Okay, 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 okay. Okay, let me update it. I change to all. So as long as you are having any condition, so F2 is a member of finance departments, but he don't belong to the finance manager group. But he should have a read and write SQL permissions. So let's update the resource. So now let's try again. Let's update F2. You have to close the graphical and reopen it, else it doesn't take place. Huh? So I right click F2 again. Classic securities, advanced, effective, apply to F2. Do you see the condition now change? You'll be so wonderful. Now you can see at least you have the secure second layer.
I didn't see can I see the folder usage?
So follow?
As the admin where I don't have access to the folder. Can I still see the folder usage?
Let's try. Now I'm administrator. Okay. Now administrator because I changed the permissions. So let's try administrator now. What permission I have? No rights. So let me go into the folder. Open up. I'm being blocked, no?
But you can take the ownership.
Yes, at least you don't block yourself, at least. This is preventing. It's the same thing as administrators. You key in the password many times, it's still allowed.
Can I see the folder usage? Because I'm running a script to check how much usage this space usage.
Usage, there is the file server resources here can find. Here, the storage stage here can be able to find usage. You can set different type of MP3 can be placed inside. But all these things is already there in 2008 R2.
Yeah, this is assuming that we are using Windows 2000. Windows as a file server, I'm using a different product for the file server.
I believe if you want to use this, your file server must be Windows 8 only. Only. Windows Server 8 only. Okay. And last of all, I do not want to install because the last one is just licensing and activations. Okay. You can go into the services, go and install the role that is a volume license. Let me just go into the snapshot to capture to show to you. So that rather than install it. Okay, I can see that I have all the screenshots so that you will be able to know what to do. Okay. Okay. So every single demo I have recorded. Okay, give me seconds. I just want to show it to you. Okay. Okay. When you go into the server manager, server role, you can add in this volume activation services. It's a new services. The benefit is that you can use this console to actually manage your KMS. As well as you can also use AD to push your licenses across and activate all your clients. So once I install finish, I go into the server manager. I just need to right click and I can just manage volume activations. With this, you open a console for me where I can use AD base. Sorry, AD base to actually control it. Now I did not do the whole demo because why? I don't have the license key. Okay, therefore this is what I can do. I just select AD base. It allows me to key in some of the licensings, www all the way. So they have to prove that this license, which is the volume license, is valid. So you have to validate through either phone or online. So perform AD and validations. Yeah, sorry, I did not. So once you have done that, you will be able to use it in Trojan. What's the benefit of using this? You do not need to set up a different infrastructure of your KMS. Every number of days when clients come and activate it, go back again. So it simplifies a lot of things.
How do I integrate my existing KMS with this one?
Because you can select the second one, the KMS services, which server to manage it across. But I don't know whether the KMS must be server 8. I don't know. Yeah, that one I don't really know.
One more thing that you talk about this access control policy. Suppose if I'm using the right management service, so how do I integrate that part in this one? I'm already using my right management service, which also give me an additional level of security.
Yeah, that one I did not show because when you do RMS, you can also do tagging. Yes, there is. You can actually integrate together with it because it's partly integrated already. Okay. The reason because if there is more on Office, you can integrate with your RMS. Okay. You can use your RMS to do whatever permission you want to do with it. You can use third party. There's a web sense where you will be able to integrate with the dynamic access control also. To have colors, the permission, all these things. You have RSA third party also. So that's plenty. If you want it, you can always send me an email so I can pass you the information on that. Yep. So once again, before I end, there is a feedback saying that when you install a server, I do not know how to shut down my server. Used to be start, shut down, but when I click start, I don't see anything. I can't shut down my server. The reason because now if you want to shut down a server, you have to control alternate delete. From here, shut down. Because it seems this is a feedback because of you. You say that it's so stupid to click on start to shut down a server. Okay, thanks everyone. Okay, I have recorded all these things, so you should have all the recordings.